The slowest, most ethical, most sustainable fashion there is. Hey, what's up, guys? I'm John Fitzgerald, sustainable fashion designer. Fast fashion is everywhere, but have you ever sat down to wonder what it's really costing us? Today, we're diving into slow fashion, what it is, why it matters, and how you can start your journey into slow fashion, even if you're on a budget. I'm on a mission, a big mission. And the mission is to change your closet from fast fashion to slow fashion. So without further hesitation, let's dive into the video. So before we can talk about slow fashion, we need to understand what fast fashion is. So according to the Oxford Dictionary, fast fashion is expensive clothing produced rapidly by mass market retailers in response to the latest trends. So here's a definition of slow fashion. Slow fashion is the opposite of fast fashion. It takes an ethical and sustainable approach to producing clothes. The slow fashion movement is a direct response to the harmful impact of fast fashion on the environment and garment workers. So for those who didn't understand, fast fashion is pretty much a mass production of garments that retailers put out to keep up with the latest trends. So for example, and this is how it happens in reality, it's us looking at the trends, looking at what other people are wearing, looking at what big designers are creating, like Gucci and all of those brands, right? What they're creating. And we can't afford all those luxury brands. You have retailers or daughter companies that create the same thing with a lower quality in higher quantity to meet our demand. So they can have these trends or these garments on our back within a shorter time, but these are mass produced by workers in third world countries that get lower wages, sometimes might not even get paid for what they're doing to get these garments on our back. So it's unethical. That's the reason slow fashion is considered the opposite of fast fashion. Instead of being unethical, it's considered more ethical. So we're talking about slow fashion today. So if we put them in two brackets, what's the difference between these two? In slow fashion, we are focused on quality instead of quantity. We are focused on timeless designs, and we are focused on ethical production. So in slow fashion, our focus is different compared to fast fashion. In fast fashion, where there's a mass production, high quantity and low quality. In slow fashion, our focus is quality instead of quantity. Timeless designs. So something that you can have in your closet for decades, for years, for decades if you actually want to. And the production is ethical instead of unethical. So there are no children workers or there are no people working in bad conditions. In fast fashion, you have mass production, you have unethical working environments, poor working conditions. I think one of the biggest problems is the impact it has on the environment. There's so much waste that it has a great impact on our environment. Then let's get into something more personal. So why did I choose to build my brand sustainably? While in fashion school, we learned about what happens to our fabrics. And I, like everyone else, I just bought clothes like I did. Just buy clothes wherever at the cheapest price possible. I didn't even think about where it came from, where it went after I used it, what it's made of. I didn't think about anything. I just went to the store, looked at the price tag, if it was nice, if it fit, and I walked out. I was one of the most simplest shopper there ever was. But during fashion school, we learned about fabrics, we learned about how it's made, where it came from, we learned about the whole journey. And most important, I believe, and what changed my mindset and my view from fast fashion to slow fashion is understanding what happens to the garments after it's been worn, after you send it back. That just changed my mind. For example, say you have this right here. I'm wearing a onesie right now, don't judge me, but I'm wearing this onesie. Say I throw this onesie out. So I put it in a container where it's being, shipped off to a distributor that distributes it to wherever it needs to go. This onesie might end up in a secondhand store. So for example, if the quality is still good, it might be sold in a secondhand store. If not, it goes to somewhere in a third world country, and 9 out of 10 times you can see that being sold in a third world country on the market, for example. So it comes back on someone's back. That's something that could be positive, but what we also learn is that some garments are so badly made that it can't even be sold or reused. So it has to be burned. And sometimes it can't even be burned because it's so bad for the environment. So these are the garments that are just terribly made. And 9 out of 10 times, these are the cheap places, like, that are coming up, like, the Temu and et cetera, right? Because the garments they're very cheap. So we buy them. They can't be circularized, so they can't come back, in that sustainable circle. It's just, yeah, it's just damaging for the environment. So that's one thing that really, really opened my eyes to, like, okay, this is crazy. Then what about what they can't sell in the third world countries? So there are also products that can't be sold in the marketplace. And where do they end up? They end up in landfills. I know you've seen the pictures online, and if you haven't, check it out. Google landfills, clothing landfills. These are just piles of clothing, like mountains, meters and meters high, like skyscrapers of clothing that can be used. And these end up in the ground, in the environment, in our oceans. Some of these have, like polyester, which is basically plastic that can't be broken down, and are just damaging to the environment. So that's another part. Another aspect of it is what it takes to make these clothings, like the water amount. It's insane what these clothing take to create. So there's just so many aspects that I didn't know as a consumer. As a consumer, you don't have any idea about this. But when you dive deeper into this story of clothing, like what is the story that our clothing tell? Like what journey has it took? I think we can sometimes, like, or at least I was like held back, like, whoa, I didn't know that. And another thing that I didn't know is that there are brands that call themselves luxury, high fashion, high end. I won't name any names, but there are certain brands that you can think about, even the one you're thinking about right now. So think about a fashion brand, a high luxury brand, high end. Think about one of them. They're probably having their garments made in a country like China or Bangladesh, even though you might not even think that. Maybe not everything, but most of their things made, because of the price to make it in such a high volume is so low that it would be a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer to get it made in a country like Bangladesh, in a country like China. More than often, you have conditions where it's just unethical. The working environment is unethical. In Bangladesh, for example, Pakistan, these places where it's just very cheap to make a garment. So you have all these high-end luxury brands that go there. And, in these factories, sometimes you have kids working. And the reason is because, kids have, smaller, delicate hands where they can, maybe fit their hands somewhere where we as adults can't. So you have all these unethical issues in it that I learned about that I didn't know before. And it was just like mind-blowing to me, like, okay, wow, I'm here in school wanting to become a fashion designer. But why would I want to become a fashion designer? Because it's such a dirty industry. Like, why? There's so many, even people who are just screen printing on t-shirts. So they're buying things in China, screen printing on t-shirts, and that's actually how I started. And then they're selling them. Like, what happens to these low cost products that are just basically t-shirts made in China? What happens to them? Those end up in landfills. In any school you learn the negative but also the positive. And what we learned during that period is about different types of way of designing, new types of designing that are coming up. So more ethical way, more environmentally cautious ways of designing, more sustainable, right? Sustainability has become a drag word during this time for us. So more ways of thinking, innovative ways. So like there are brands that take plastic out of the ocean and they create new things. There are brands that reuse things, right? So having that insight for me was very important because I understood, like, okay, I do not have to follow the past, like how it is happening. I can also, take that more sustainable way of designing. And that's when I just completely flipped, like, okay, I want to go sustainable and I want to be like a circular brand. Helping to move our closets from fast fashion to slow fashion. That's the mission I'm on, and that's the mission I hope to stay on. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'm John Fitzgerald. I leave you with these 4 words: be more fearless. And if you liked and enjoyed this video, I'm sure you'll enjoy this one somewhere right here.